being receptive, and expanding deeper and deeper into your own consciousness. The most important thing that we could be doing for the world is just doing that. Because bringing in that light is what's changing everything. Yeah, because most people won't wake up until there's enough stuff going on till they hit that rock bottom place, and then they go, no more. You don't have to go into effort or force it. You can still take action, but it's more from after you've received that intuition, the guidance to go take action.
Yeah.
What miracles, what things are going to be created, and how's it going to unfold?
Hello and welcome to the Higher Vibe. We are having conversations with psychic friends. I'm your host, Jean Roorda, and today I have with me Lisa Walther Flores. She's a spiritual teacher and clairvoyant healer. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Jean. It's so great to be here with you today.
Yay. It's so good to be here with you. I'm excited about our conversation. We were chatting earlier about receptivity, this vibration of beingness that we can call being receptive, being open, allowing, and the magnetism that comes from that. I loved what you were communicating with me before we started recording, so I'd love to hear you share more about that. What is receptivity to you? What does that mean when we talk about receptivity, and how does that support us in living both our spiritual life and our physical lives here?
Yes, good question. Sometimes it's hard to describe, and it's very different from what we're used to doing and what we've been taught, because it's not about doing anything.
Yeah.
It's about opening up. You first go through this process of allowing, and allowing can be a long process. And it's opening yourself up. It's like opening the windows, the doors to everything in your life, and you're allowing your divinity to start to come in. And then you move into the receptivity of receiving, having, and then from there, then you can take action in the world, in your life. But truly, if we did everything from that place, then we probably wouldn't have so many problems in
Yes.
the world.
Yeah. So really so many of our problems come from not recognizing that we're doing the doingness really good, but we haven't placed the beingness and the receptivity before that, right? We've kind of
Right,
skipped that part of it. And so then we're really trying to create from an empty cup, essentially. We're trying to effort our way through life,
right.
right?
And we're listening to the mind versus our own intuition, our own divinity, or whatever you want to call high self, true self, divine self.
Yeah.
And I know that through many experiences, when I'm just operating from the mind and doing stuff that way, it usually doesn't work out too well.
Yeah. There's
And
a lot more effort and struggle and confusion.
yes, and
Yeah.
it's the mind's very limited, so it can't see the whole picture of
Right.
things.
Yeah.
And so that receptivity allows us to be quiet, to be still, and to listen to that soft voice that guides us.
Yeah. That has eternal wisdom.
Yes.
And like you said, can see the bigger picture, right? And
Right.
sometimes when you're listening to that voice, you don't always get the bigger picture right away. Sometimes you only get that very clear next step or next couple of steps. But it's coming from that place within you, that place of your inner divinity that does see and know the bigger picture.
Yes.
So you don't have to be in that efforted mind space of just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, and I see so many people that I'm friends with, or just, wherever I go, and they're just doing everything from the mind. And that's what we've been taught.
Yeah.
So there's no judgment.
Yeah, it's understandable.
There's just a different way to do it.
It
And,
is.
as you start to expand and move onto your spiritual journey, you start to learn different ways of doing things.
More effective ways.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and they're simpler too. Like you said, it's hard to describe receptivity because it's so simple, because it's a non-doing. And when you have a word that's a verb, it sounds like you're doing something.
Right.
right? You're supposed to be receptive. It was like, okay, I'm gonna try really hard to be receptive.
Yes.
But it's the opposite. Yeah, it's a letting go, it's a letting be, it's a allowing, giving space really with your awareness and your presence to allow, like you said, that quieter voice within you. The mind's
Yes.
voice is pretty loud, right?
Well,
But
and that's a good point, Jean, because people ask me, well, how do you know the difference between the mind and between your intuition?
yeah,
And that's it. The mind is very loud
yeah,
and it will just, jump in, and it's almost kind of obnoxious at times. And your true intuition is very soft and quiet, and it's never going to tell you to do something.
Yeah.
The mind ego will tell you, hey, go do this,
Yeah.
but your intuition usually is more of like, here's an option for you.
Yeah. This looks good.
Yeah. What do you think about this?
Yeah. How about this? Yeah.
And
It's also, I'm noticing the difference with the mind, there's fear.
yes,
And with the intuition will never be, unless it's a clear, like, there's a car coming
like
at you and you need
urgent.
to move out of the
Yeah.
way.
Right.
When it's like physical survival level stuff, there's that information. But otherwise, it's not fear-based. It's
Yes.
another clear distinction. Yeah. Yeah.
So I could talk a little bit about my experience during COVID. I did a big move into a
Wow.
very tiny little town, and I needed a big change, and I was guided, and it all just kind of fell into place very quickly because I
Yes.
moved within 3 weeks, and I was in this small little town in Washington, Electric City by Grand Coulee Dam, and
And that's very different for you. That's not
yes,
where
I'm
you.
from a bigger metropolitan area, not like Portland, but it's getting close. So, Idaho, Boise area. And so I made the move here, and it's so quiet. And then, of course, we had COVID where everything shut down. And for me, it was my next step to really move into more of the receptivity, to start to grow and expand. And I needed that. I needed this little place to have that stillness, that quietness, like a sanctuary. This has been like my sanctuary here. And so through that time, I was just going through these really deep, kind of energetic upgrades and expansion. I was releasing things. I was going into extreme bliss,
Yay.
which was amazing. Of course, I couldn't function, which was good at times because I didn't have to go do things.
Yeah.
I wasn't teaching, I wasn't doing my healing work, and I'd been doing that for gosh, like 20 years or
You've
so.
been teaching for a long time before that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was really I was a little worried because I'm like, well, I got to be doing this stuff, and it just wasn't happening. So there was that part of me like, okay, I've got to make this happen. How do I make this happen, because we're all
Right.
shut down and
Yeah.
it
We're,
wasn't
we're all familiar
possible.
with that, right? This isn't happening. I got to make it. I got to make it happen.
Yep. So yeah, you jump in and you're like, oh, you start to panic a little bit. But I was like, okay, I'm supposed to just go within myself, be in my own energy. Because as many as you know, and many healers know, that when you're working with a lot of people and you're especially teaching a lot, it's a lot of energy that you're having to manage, deal with, and hold space for. And this was my time to really dive into myself more deeply and to go into my own realization. And I couldn't be doing the other work with other people. And it was really about taking care of myself, probably for the first time, really just, you could call it selfish, but I really call it going
Love.
inward and being
Yeah.
with myself, taking care of myself, putting myself first. I don't think I've ever done that in my entire life. Not at this level.
Yeah. You were ready though. You had good timing.
I had good timing, and I could have chose not to do the leap. So
Yeah.
that's important to know too. We always have a choice. We have these openings on our journey, and we can always choose to not do it at that time, and then maybe it'll come in a different way later down the road. But I just took that leap of faith and I said, no, I'm doing this. And it was a little terrifying.
Yeah.
Going and living somewhere I didn't really know people,
during a time that nobody's really connecting with new people anyway.
Right, and then all that happened. So it was very interesting, but it was amazing because the first time I just got to be so still with myself and my guidance, my team. And that's where I started to really learn about this receptivity, and that truly each of us we are the center of our own universe. So everybody is in their own world. It looks
It's
like,
true.
yeah, it looks like we're all together, but we're
Yeah.
not. We really aren't.
Yeah. I'm laughing because, you get that level of awareness of we're all in our own little world when you have these moments where you're trying to communicate with someone and it's like, nope, they're in their own world. This is a funny example of that. But no, it's true. Yeah, we're all at the center of our own hologram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's a little hard to wrap your mind around, of course.
Yeah.
But when you truly have that understanding and you start to know that on a conscious level, that you are the center and that everything already exists, everything is already here for you, there's no lack. You don't have to go out and get anything, and anytime that you need something, it will come to you.
Yeah.
You don't have to go into effort or force it. You can still take action, but it's more from after you've received that intuition, the guidance to go take action.
Right. Yeah, the action comes from a different place within you. It's like the body, your body still goes around and does things.
Yes.
You just still like go to the store and purchase your groceries or whatever. But just, basic example. But yeah, I see what you're pointing out is it's coming from a different place within you. And it's not coming from the body, right?
Right.
It's coming from you as a spiritual being aligned with who you truly are.
Right.
That's beautiful. It's such a relief, too.
It is. It's,
There's that fear. I mean, you were pointing out that there's fear and it's scary when you take that leap of faith to really dive into a deeper level of inner connection and inner exploration. But really, on the other side of that, it's a relief. You get to let go of so much effort and responsibility that you may have been living in before when you were more identified with that body personality, with the mind, with operating from that effort and figuring it all out. It's really a relief to be operating more from that spiritual awareness and spiritual identity, because then you can just receive and allow instead of being in so much effort and figuring it out. Yeah.
right.
I see that as a huge relief. Like, oh, thank you.
It takes a lot of, it takes a lot of energy to be in the mind and to like plan everything out, and, and you're going around and around because your mind doesn't ever really bring us to an answer. It's
Right.
analyzing and analyzing things, but it doesn't
Yeah.
really give us a true answer.
And it's not at rest ever. It's just busy,
No.
busy.
You're in the hamster wheel.
Yeah, exactly. That's the picture, exactly. You can't even slow down. You got to get faster and faster. Yeah, a lot of anxiety, I think it produces for people without really recognizing where that anxiety is coming from.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, the mind is either in the past or it's in the future. And this was
Never
something
right here.
right? It's about just being present. And that's the receptivity too, is you're being present. And that's been a huge relief for me of, I don't have to plan all this stuff out. And I still make plans for things, of course, because I do shows, I sell jewelry and products and things like that. And so I schedule people and things like that. So I still make plans, but I'm open to allowing things to shift. And I don't know if you've noticed, like, I'll have my day set out and it always changes. Now, that's how it is for me now, is it's always in flux and changing, and I'm open and flexible to be like, okay, well, that obviously wasn't time to do that. Now I need to go do this instead.
Yeah.
And I
So
think
it still works out.
It does. Yeah. It still all works out. And I think if people could allow themselves to be flexible and not so rigid in things, that would help ease a lot of the anxiety.
Yeah.
And no, it's all going to work out in the end. It always
Yeah.
does. How we get there, nobody knows. And that's kind of the fun part of the journey is, what's going to happen today? So that's kind of what I get up and I try to think of, like, okay, what surprises are going to happen today?
Yeah.
What miracles, what things are going to be created, and how's it going to unfold? And so I just think that that's a really wonderful way to live versus like being in this constant state of fear and anxiety, especially when things don't work out at a certain way or a certain time that you wanted them to.
Yeah, I love that. I see that as really creating space. It's part of that receptivity when you begin your day and just recenter into that space of, it's such a positive space of what miracles are going to unfold rather than in the fear space, what's going to happen to me? When I look at the, what's going to happen to me, that fear space, there's no space to receive the miracles, the fun surprises, the gifts of the day, the everything flowing and working out as it needs to. And when you come from that space, that's open, that's receptive. That's kind of a great example of what you're talking about being receptive and open, having the doors and windows open, right? It's like you're inviting in what kind of wonderful things are going to happen today.
Right.
What kind of beauty am I going to experience? And
yes.
And when we're focusing on that fear or living from that fear, all the windows and doors are closed. There's no space to receive the goodness.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. I love the imagery of the open door.
Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of doors that have to be open.
Yeah.
I can say. And it's not easy. It's not easy to allow. Allowing is probably one of the hardest things to do because it is a level of letting go and surrendering that need to control everything.
Right.
And when people are controlling, that it makes them feel a certain level of safety, even though we know that's not true.
It's a response to fear. It's like the action that fear takes is to control.
Yeah, so it's a big kind of letting go of, needing to know things and to want to control things. It's a vulnerability, and I think that's probably one of the hard things for most humans to do is to allow themselves to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because there's an idea with the vulnerability that we are weak.
Right.
And we're not protected. But actually, when you're more vulnerable, more of your divinity is coming in and you are more supported and protected than ever before, as you know.
True. Yeah. Yeah. But like you said, it can be a difficult process in that transition because in allowing, you're letting go of that fear and the control that you were operating from when you were in that fear. And it takes a lot of trust,
Yes.
that vulnerability, which is really completely invulnerable in its invulnerability.
Yeah.
Completely vulnerable and invulnerable at the same time. Your divinity, just really being able to trust that you're held by God, by your inner divine beingness. It's a huge letting go, like you said, that leap of faith.
Mm-hmm. And that's what the awakening process really is. You're not surrendering, you're being surrendered.
Yeah.
Because the human doesn't know how to surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. It's like you're letting your true self be in the driver's seat rather than the mind, the ego self. Mm-hmm. I love that you're being surrendered. That's a nice way of saying, here you go.
Yeah.
You're being kicked out of the driver's seat.
Right.
The you formerly identified with that we could call the mind or the ego self is being surrendered.
That's all those continuous wake-up calls and waking up and dark nights of the soul. And it's all a surrendering until there's nothing left to surrender. And then the divinity can just come in and run the show like it always was anyways.
It always was. We were just in so much effort to fight it. And really wrestling for that driver's seat position there that we never really had. We just thought we did.
sure.
I love how when we were chatting earlier and you mentioned that you really are the center of your own universe, I just kept getting such a funny image of being told as a kid, and I see a lot of kids get this messaging from adults that is more negative, more judgmental, more controlling, that says, well, you're not the center of the world, you're literally told the opposite. And I think that's when you come in as a child and you have that bright spark of knowing of spirit, and you are the center of your universe. Everything's kind of about
Absolutely.
you, like developmentally too. Everything
Right.
is you. You're experiencing everything as it being you. You haven't like differentiated.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's that messaging like, no, that's bad, that's wrong, that's selfish, or I think a lot of adults get really triggered by that. And so the messaging that gets a little bit programmed into a lot of us as we're growing up is not to think that way, right?
Right. And
You have to
that's
work
that's our
hard. And
natural state of being, and we're being told not to operate that way.
yeah, there's so many of us that get that programming and messaging quite early that no, this natural state of being that you're in, that's bad and wrong, and whatever judgments are put on it, whether the adult thinks you're acting selfishly, or I think entitled often comes up.
Yes.
Right? Because the child's acting from this knowing of having, of everything's coming to me. But then that might appear to the adult who's operating more from that effort and operating from outside of their spiritual havingness, that might look like they're just like an entitled, whatever
Mm-hmm.
other bad words for the child. And so we all go through that kind of gauntlet of programming and a lot of layers of judgment, and sometimes for some children even trauma.
Yes.
Sometimes we experience a lot of trauma in that process of having that natural way of being beat out of us, literally or figuratively. Hopefully not literally, but that happens too.
Right.
And so then that's part of what makes that process of surrender more scary, because all of those judgments come up, all of that fear and that control of no, you can't have that. That's bad, or that's wrong, or that's scary, or you're going to lose the approval of your loved ones, or you're going to lose your place, your belonging, your safety.
Mm-hmm.
All of that comes up in the process on a pretty deep level, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
as you know, it's not just this lifetime's worth of that kind of messaging and programming and
Right.
trauma, perhaps, but your whole soul's journey.
Yes. All the other
Many lifetimes
aspects.
of that kind of programming of really just fear. You can't
Mm-hmm.
live from that place of spirit, or something's going to get you. I
Right. Yeah.
think I've been there, done that.
It takes a lot of courage to be on that spiritual journey of really opening up and to want to know yourself. It takes courage, and it takes devotion and commitment to yourself to do that. And I always thought people would, everybody would want to be on that same boat or train, but there's so many people that really aren't. And I think now it's changing because the energy has changed, but I know when I was going through my own courses of clearing out traumas and all of that, and then going into teaching others, I thought, yeah, aren't you excited? Don't you want to keep going? But a lot of people they want humans like a little bit of change, but
Yeah.
not too much change.
Yeah. It's a little bit. Yeah.
Just a little bit, so my life is just a little bit better.
Yeah.
But not to really to know all that they are, because this is just the role, and we have the soul, and it has all those aspects of the soul that go out into all those other lives, and that's so the soul can know itself through our experiences, through the human's experiences. But when we come in, we don't know that. So the
Yeah.
human yeah, it would have
That
been nice.
amnesia is so great, isn't it?
It would have been nice to know, yeah.
Yeah.
So the human thinks that its job to be in charge and to do everything by itself and to run the show.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I had learned was that the human is here to have experience. And that's it. It's just to have experiences. And the soul decides what those experiences are going to be for the human. And of course, a lot of those experiences we look at like, no, those are not fun.
Yeah.
Why would I want to have those
Who
experiences?
signed me up for that?
Yeah. I didn't sign up for this. What's going on here? But it's the soul that takes all those experiences, brings it into wisdom to know itself in totality. So this is one of the things that would have been nice to know early on, that as the human just gets to experience.
Yeah.
And it's up to the
pressure's off.
Yeah, the
Getting
pressure.
back to, isn't it a relief? Like, to me, that's a relief.
It's
Like,
a huge
whew!
relief.
I get to let go of all of that effort and struggle and also responsibility, right? That doesn't mean we're irresponsible and we don't care about how we affect others. It just means like we're not out there feeling like we have to fix and solve and take care of everything.
Right.
Huge relief.
And when we do try to, this is one of the big things I see a lot of healers and teachers out there doing, is they're trying to solve, fix, or heal the world.
Right.
Well, it's perfect as it is. And when we put our energy out into doing that, it's going to kick back at us pretty hard.
Right.
You know,
That intense creative energy that's kind of forcing itself out there to fix or heal or solve just kind of boomerangs back, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And that, again, we come back to that receptivity, because it's about being in the world but not of the world. It's about being in that state of neutrality. It's about observing everything that's going on around you. It's not getting caught up in taking sides, because there's so much duality right now.
We're probably going to piss some people off with this messaging.
Probably. And, you know, it doesn't mean you can't have preferences.
Few angry comments. It's okay. I totally get it. Like that knowingness that we have of this is just about, like you said, being in the world, not of the world. And that means that you can be passersby, be witness, be aware, be an observer, but you don't have to go out there and solve it, right?
Right.
The way that this came to me before a couple days ago was oneness doesn't try to solve or fix duality. It just doesn't. Oneness just is, right? And so I love the way you put it. Like the human thinks, okay, I've got to go out and fix or change or solve this, probably because the human self is basing everything on how it feels, and this doesn't feel good, so I need to change it, right? But when we're operating from that spirit self, that's actually where we get to start feeling a lot better. And then the pressure's off. You don't have to fix or solve duality. You don't have to take sides. It's actually a relief. But the people that are taking sides are going to be really angry at you for not taking a side.
Yes, I'm sure. And I have preferences. When you start to really come into your full mastery, a master doesn't take sides. It can have preferences of like, yeah, I don't like to see abuse in the world. I don't like to see suffering in the world. But the master understands that everything is perfect as it is and that it will resolve itself, because energy is always trying to resolve itself no matter what, and eventually it will all resolve itself. And so it's about bringing in more light, more consciousness to the planet so that it can continue to keep shifting and changing in the direction that it needs to. But I don't need to be in there with my energy saying, no, you need to go over here, or no, you need to do this, because everything is happening for a reason. And the human can't see those things.
Right.
And yes,
and that's where it's hard to accept when we're looking at it from that place, and where it upsets a lot of people. Like you brought up, sure, I don't want to, I might not like abuse, neglect, war, suffering that happens, but you don't resolve that. That doesn't mean you don't care about it because you're being neutral. It means that you're not going to resolve it by going out there with your energy and fighting it.
Right.
Because that fight energy, that against energy, is the same energy that that suffering is coming from. But like you said, we don't see that on that human level. But when we're looking at it from a place of neutrality and we're really validating this is an energy that is resolving itself simply by recognizing the truth that that suffering and that abuse and that neglect is a product of that consciousness that's in a space of separateness. And those souls that are going through that, as difficult as it is when you're going through that, and as painful and sad as it might be to witness that, we know that that soul is learning and growing through that experience and that it will be resolved. And our loving witness and our support of the truth and spirit is really what supports those souls in recognizing that truth for themselves so that they can heal that.
Right.
And get to the other side of that dark night of the soul.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most people won't wake up until there's enough stuff going on till they hit that rock bottom place, and then they go, no more.
Yeah.
And we all went through that no more in other lifetimes, and we said, no more. I no longer want to continue this way.
Not enough suffering. Yeah.
Yeah. And
There's got to be a better way, right?
Right. And then we wake up and then it starts to change. Now, it doesn't change overnight, but it slowly starts opening. Things start opening up, doors, things, possibilities start opening up. And I think that's important for people to understand that if you have that desire and that intention that you want your life to be different, that's all you have to do is say, hey, no more. And then start to ask and request and say, I'm no longer willing to live in a state of suffering. I'm now going to live in grace, joy, peace, bliss, a place of abundance, prosperity. And if you have that true desire, not just from the mind, but you really feel in your whole being, and then that's all you have to do is set that intention, as we both know, and then things start opening up and shifting.
They do. And it takes, as you said before, deep surrender, because I think when someone's in a dark place of just many repetitive lifetimes, or even just in this lifetime, a lot of suffering, whether they've experienced abuse their whole life or just, one painful experience after another, it's a lot to surrender the mind, the part of the mind and identity that's attached to that suffering.
Yes.
That's attached to being the victim, to the point where it's upsetting when you pointed out, like, you don't actually have to do that anymore. It can be very upsetting to the person who's experiencing that. Like, I'm not doing this to myself. No, not your conscious self is not doing that to yourself. You're experiencing that until you make that decision as a soul that you're done.
Right.
You're done being the victim. You're done letting the mind run the show. And you're going to surrender to that inner divinity and let your healing path unfold and trust that it will, and it is.
And it does.
And it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you point out, like, we've all been there in other lifetimes. I think sometimes someone who's experiencing a lot of, whether it be abuse or other kinds of deep suffering in this lifetime, they might say to you, well, you've never experienced this, so you don't know. It's like, well, we've all experienced different levels of pain and suffering, but certainly not to the same degree. But then when you're aware of your whole soul's journey, it's like, well, yeah, I have been there, done that. You want to hear about it?
Right.
It's ugly.
Yeah.
But I'm not attached to or identified with it anymore. One, because that was a different lifetime, but two, because I've reached that place as a soul, and you did as well, of there's got to be a better way. I know that life isn't supposed to be about just suffering. I know that I can experience freedom and joy and grace. And that's when, you kind of make that U-turn on your soul's journey and just really get on a healing path of reclaiming your inner divinity and making space for it.
Yeah. So, if you're an older soul, you've done it all. You've experienced it all. And not all in the same lifetime. It's all those other aspects of you, of the soul, that have had all of those experiences, and we're all connected. And when you wake up and you're, we could say, the designated aspect of your soul, lead all of the other aspects into their healing, into their realization, and into their enlightenment. It's a long journey. It's a challenging journey. People ask me, would I change anything this life?
Yeah.
And it's been very hard at times where I've wanted to give up. But, you know, I keep going, because what else am I going to do, right?
You came this far.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and you know, there's that place within you that you just know, even though this is hard in the moment, this too shall pass.
Right.
And there is a great light at the end of the tunnel that you see, that you kind of glimpse, and then, oh,
yeah, we get those little glimpses of things that just kind of keep you going. So I've had a lot of those. But yeah, I wouldn't change it, because I wouldn't be where I'm at today without all those experiences. And so if I could, you know, give a message to people that are really struggling right now, it's, you're the one that's in charge. You can change this. It's through your intention and your desire that you want it different, that you're done. Like when you are at that point where you're like, no more, that's when the energy will change and things will open up. And there's so much love, there's so much guidance and support for you, but if we're not asking for it, if we're not open, we're not receptive, then, you know, like, our guides are working and communicating with us at all times, but because we're in a lower state of consciousness, we're in tremendous fear, anxiety, and we're not receptive and we're not open, we're not hearing those messages. We're not getting that guidance. So it's about, one, starting to take care of yourself and doing whatever it takes to put yourself in a safe place. Because once we can start to feel safe, then we can start to open up and be receptive. But as long as we're in a place of fear, we don't feel safe, it's like all those doors and windows, they're shut down or closed down. And then nothing can come in. So it's about just
the image of creating safety, of like, I'm here for me. Like you said, it's important to take care of yourself. I think that's one of the easiest things to forget, is you have to be here for yourself. That's where it starts. That's where that safety of like, I got you, girl. You know, I'm here for you. Like your own self, right? It seems so basic, and yet so many times we operate kind of from a vacancy within us. We're not even really present with ourselves. And that's how we become the victim and just get buffeted around by all of the intense experiences of life. So it takes that willingness and like you said, the desire and the choice. I want something different for myself, but really, like, I'm here for myself too. I got this, right?
Yes.
A part of you that is more connected to spirit. It's like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to take care of myself, my body self.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Self-love. It's so important.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing, is the self-love. And that's what I've been moving towards for so many years here. And really starting to come into a place of full acceptance. I'm not there yet, but
It's a journey.
I feel pretty good about where I'm at, who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm not doing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've finally come to a place where there's no more seeking. It's just, I get to live my life in a state of grace, joy, and I can choose that at any moment. I can choose to go match some fear, or I can choose to match some, you know, grief, depression, or I can choose just to be in my own vibration. So we always have those choices, but it's amazing when you get at this point where you really start living.
Yeah.
You really start living, and you start to enjoy everything that's around you, no matter what's happening.
Yeah. It's true. It might sound weird, like, how could you enjoy what's happening if it's, you know, something ugly or terrible or conflict or whatever it is? But when you live from that deeply centered in spirit space, you can enjoy yourself and the life that you're living, even if the experience you're having is like super mundane or super unpleasant.
Right.
You can be really sick and be like, wow, here I am.
Right.
Having this illness. You can still enjoy yourself and who you are
Yes.
and your process of allowing the experience, the clouds to pass.
Yeah, and not being in suffering anymore. I think that's been one of the biggest things for me, is to really come out of the suffering completely. That's a huge one for humanity, because it's so ingrained. And, as Yeshua went on the cross, that was all misconstrued. So then the churches took that into meaning, okay, now you have to suffer for your redemption.
Right. The subconscious messaging is, this is how you do it. You
Right.
suffer.
You have to suffer, and then you're going to be
Yeah.
saved and
You have to
redeemed, and
be a martyr or
yeah,
sacrifice yourself.
yeah.
That was very misunderstood.
It was very misunderstood, and I'm excited to stay on the planet and watch the planet transform out of suffering.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah. And it starts
I want to
by
see that.
one person at a time
Yes.
coming out of the suffering, and then, as we each start matching each other. And I mean, it's possible. I'm holding the space. I know it. I see it. I feel it. It's going to happen.
Absolutely. And that's so powerful, what you pointed out. We each start matching each other. This is why I often feel like healers think if they're not in that going out and doing space, that, what's the point? They're not doing anything.
Right.
But as healers, being in that space of receptivity, there is so much change that can happen just in your being in that space of awareness, because, like you said, people match. People match.
Yes.
And if you're holding that higher vibration, you're being in that space of that higher vibration, it's a huge invitation and a magnetic call, really, for others to match that. And it really provides the anchor for that here on the earth. So there's a lot that you're, quote, doing without the doing.
Right. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that we as healers, I don't like to use the term light workers, because, and this might make some people mad too, because that's referring to light and dark, and that's just duality,
Right.
So
there's a lot of, I see that, where in that world of using the term light worker, you're in a battle against the dark.
You're in a battle. I'm not in a battle.
Not fighting anything.
No. So
great.
Holding that space of just opening up, being receptive, and expanding deeper and deeper into your own consciousness, and bringing in more consciousness, and bringing in more of the new light that's coming in. That's the biggest job. The most important thing that we could be doing for the world is just doing that. Because bringing in that light is what's changing everything.
It is, yeah.
So we don't have to go out and really do anything other than just be ourselves and keep allowing that light to keep coming in.
Yeah, take care of ourselves. And in so doing, we're taking care of our loved ones in our community, really setting that space for others to follow suit, to also be in that space of self-love and receptivity.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a big 180, really, from the way that the world has been operating for so long. From the opposite of receptivity. I like to say sometimes, like, the world is just one big game of resistance. And so it would be amazing to see that enormous shift, to see more and more people living from that space of receptivity and havingness of spirit. Because, right now it still appears, and it is shifting, but for so long, and it still appears pretty strong, the world has just operated from total resistance, right? We don't even notice how much resistance there is until we start to let go of that resistance. And we're like, holy cow, this is
Right.
layers and layers. We're just buried in resistance, and we're operating from so much resistance. It's incredible.
Well, it's that need to control. We want to control and be in charge. And so instead of letting go of the reins and letting all the stuff fall away that we don't need anymore, and then allowing what we do need, more of ourselves, true selves, coming in. People are very identified as a certain person or certain way, is through their jobs, what they do. And as you're going through that journey, that identity starts dissolving. And I've definitely had to go through some of those of like, when I got really sick for a couple years and I couldn't teach or I couldn't really do anything. And that
Even
was
your identity as a teacher or healer was starting to.
yeah, it's like, well, who am I without that? Because I was very identified. And that's one of the things I see too in people in their spiritual journeys is like they kind of let go of some of this human stuff, but then they start creating a spiritual ego.
Yeah. There is that. It's almost like more intense than
It is.
the spiritual ego can be like, oh.
Woo, that spiritual competition is fierce.
Woo, I know. And like you said, it brings me back to the thought of the spiritual warrior, right? What was it called? The light warrior? What was the term that's so common?
Light worker.
Light worker. I know, work. So much work.
You might as well say light warrior because that's truly what it is.
It's like it's a battle, and so it is. It's the ego just sort of co-opts that process of letting go of identity. It's like, well, how about this identity?
Yeah.
This is a nice one. This is a spiritual ego. And yeah, it can be even more problematic because maybe you don't notice it because it's got the light and love on it.
Oh yeah, that light and
But
love.
it's still like control and fight and battle and effort and whew, it's a good one.
That's a whole nother topic we could talk about probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see that in spiritual communities, and it's not a judgment. It's something to be aware of, that it's part of that process as the ego is unraveling and identities, you're letting go of identities. If there's still a part of you that is in fear, it's going to latch onto a new identity, but this is a good one.
Right. Exactly.
It can be more difficult to notice that the fear and the control is still lingering and your receptivity to spirit is being limited in that way.
Yeah, you'll just get another wake-up call, which I did.
Yeah. Another opportunity. I like how you pointed out there are opportunities. You can always decline. Wait till next time, But I noticed too, if you decline too often, like your next opportunity might come with a little bit more, like you said, the wake up call. It might come with the spiritual 2x4 over the head, or
Yeah, like take you completely out,
Yeah, it might have a little bit more of a motivation with it or something. It might feel like less of a choice later on because more of your inner spirit self is going, no, you really do need this. You really are ready. Don't you think you're ready? Oh, but it's still a choice. It's really, I think of free will as like, you can have it or you can resist it.
I love that.
But you just are. You already are. So, but like you said, that process of all the different souls incarnating, all these different journeys of incarnation is really about knowing yourself as spirit. So you get to experience yourself as anything but, and then wake up and go, oh, I'm not any of these.
Right.
These costumes I put on, or
yeah.
What did Shakespeare say? Life's a stage.
Yes, he did.
To play all these fun roles, the victim and the victimizer. Yeah. Well, it's not fun when we're being the victim if someone points out to us that we've also experienced being the victimizer. But that's that bigger picture that you begin to see when you look at your life from that spiritual presence and awareness as, oh yeah, I've actually played both sides of this role of suffering. And it's a lot easier to forgive when you see that.
Mm-hmm.
It might be harder to forgive yourself. But in the moment, it's easier to forgive the other when you're experiencing suffering at the hands of another.
Right. Yeah, and it goes hand in hand because when you've been victimized, then you become the victimizer. It's a cycle that begins and then you just go around and around in it. And that was a hard one. I did a course during that big time, and I got to really feel and be in that energy of the victimizer. And that was pretty incredible to experience that because, being the victim is pretty easy to recognize.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it's like, yes, if you've been the victim, then you bounce back and forth between the two.
Yeah. That's the
And
nature of duality.
right. And then to totally come out of all of it, then it all has to be seen and released.
Yeah.
And when you're aware of that, that's big. As you know, awareness is the biggest part. Once you're aware of something, then you can't see it differently.
Yeah. Can't unsee it.
Can't unsee that.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting trying to explain that to someone who hasn't seen. It's like, if someone's trying to get you to see it this way and you're like, well, I see it and I can't unsee it. I see the truth, so I'm not going to unsee it.
Right.
That's funny.
Well, that's where you have to have experiences, I believe, because so much of this, with the spiritual journey, people try to do it from the mind intellectually, and you don't really start making shifts and changes until you really start having the experiences. The
Right.
experiences is what starts opening you up, and you start seeing things that, that just shift you.
Yeah. It's taking it from that intellectual space to the embodied, intuitive, experiential space.
Yes.
Where you have to make a decision about something and live from that new space rather than just think about it.
Right.
Yeah. Might be a little more safe or comfortable feeling to just think about it, though.
Yes. True.
Read another book.
Well, and I started out reading books,
Too, yeah.
but you have to start seeking, when you're really seeking, then other things start happening to you naturally because you have the intention and the desire of like, yeah, I want to know myself.
Yeah.
So show me. Of course, we don't know what all that means and what it's going to be. And then I was like, whoa, wait a second. Maybe not
And
that
then
much.
do we always recognize, I love that, show me, and then we're shown, right, by various experiences, different interactions with other people, and we're like, whoa.
Yeah.
We may not recognize that we're being shown who we are
Right.
in those experiences. We have to be humble and aware
Yeah.
of the journey we get to have here, being human and practicing being in the world, but not of the world.
Right, especially now too. Like this is the most exciting time that on this planet that the planet's ever seen.
Yeah.
This is like the biggest change and transformation, and one of the
It's the
things
most.
people are struggling with too is, so the mind has this thing called qualia where it refers back to past experiences. Okay.
Yes.
And it can even refer back to like your other lifetimes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we've entered new territory with the whole, I call it the Great Awakening with COVID,
It
because
is.
it really was. The mind, there's no qualia for the mind, where we're at now and where we're going.
Great.
And because it's moving so fast, so that's why a lot of people are in intense anxiety and fear, because there's no reference points for us.
They're completely disoriented to not have that reference.
Yep.
It's like that's gone.
Yep.
I love that. So it's kind of like the slate has been cleaned of all that past referencing.
Yeah, we're just moving into such new territory, growth and transformation, and because it's going so fast, like you're like, I don't even know what this is like, or it's all like being a baby. It's like all new.
Yeah.
That's
But like
why.
a baby, when we first come in, if we have that enthusiasm and trust and just presence, just watching,
Yep.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, so we're going back into our natural state of being. And that receptivity, as we circle around again, is our natural state of being.
Yes, it's such a relief.
I know.
I hope others are experiencing that. The more we talk about it, the more I just like, the breath gets deeper. You just naturally let go of so much the more you tune your awareness into that vibration that we're speaking to of receptivity. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
so much of that underlying effort in the body just lets go because you don't have to hold on anymore.
Right.
Such a relief.
Yeah, and the mind doesn't have to keep trying to jump ahead and figure stuff out, and you're not in all that effort. It's more efficient.
So efficient.
You know?
Letting it be.
It's like,
That's
okay.
great. Yeah. I think there's many souls out there who are just as excited as we are because so many of us incarnated during this time for this huge shift, this
Yes.
great awakening, whether because probably on many levels for our own soul's growth and transformation, as well as supporting other souls in their growth and transformation, as well as just being a witness to this amazing, never before seen shift. And
Absolutely.
being a witness to, as you said, operating from that new space. Like how many lifetimes have we been around on this planet in that old control, fear, and resistance game to the point where it's getting a little old.
Yeah. Way old.
So we're like so ready to see, ooh, how about if we operate from our natural state of being, as you're saying, from that receptivity and experience joy? Like it's exciting to be able to witness that. And I think we're all eagerly awaiting, like, how's this going to play out? And we're going
Oh,
to
yeah.
see society transform, see our systems transform, just see our communities transform, and see our way of living completely transform. It's a 180, though. It's very different.
It is, and it takes a bit to get into that, to allow it.
Yeah.
Really, it's about allowing it. And
Yeah.
it's just being self-aware in the moments and going, okay, am I allowing or am I back in my other mode?
Yeah.
The automatic unconsciousness mode.
Yeah, it's probably the hardest part is allowing during that process of unraveling.
It is.
Because it looks scary, it feels scary, it looks painful, it can be very painful.
Yes, all of the above.
Yeah. But just trusting and knowing, like, I've course corrected. I keep seeing like the enormous ship, that's going a certain way. And then the decision has already been made to turn it around and go the other way.
Right.
But it takes a while to turn it around. There's all that momentum going a certain way. There's all the inertia. There's everything that's been built up. But the decision has already been made. And so it is course correcting. And there's nothing you have to do. Just go along for the ride. But it's getting to be, it can be a little intense ride, right? Everything's flip-flopping upside down. There's a lot of disorientation.
Yes.
There's what you were referencing in the mind of there's nothing you can reference anymore because it's just completely different. It takes a great amount of trust.
Yeah. And when you don't know about any of this stuff that we're talking about, it would be pretty terrifying to be in the world without where we're at, without the knowingness, the connection to our own guidance, our true selves, our tools.
Yeah, having spiritual tools to navigate right now, I think is totally essential.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I'll just teach something as simple as just being with your breath. Like, if there wasn't anything that you could do, just take a moment and breathe very deeply, be with your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself will start to naturally ground you. And then, of course, grounding is the next biggest tool.
Absolutely.
But yeah, when people don't have any tools, it's very hard.
It is. I see that, and part of me is like, don't you want this? But like you said, I'm just observing, like I'm here. If anyone needs support, but I'm not chasing anyone.
No, and that's, people will naturally come to you, as they'll just naturally show up when they're ready for something. And it could be, this is the other thing I see with a lot of healers. And I used to do this myself, so it's not trying to judge, but I would always want to give that person more than they could have.
Yeah.
And I don't do that anymore.
I've never done that.
I've never done that.
might not ever do that again. I don't know. Am I still doing that? Yeah. No, it's difficult not to. We want to give it all.
Yep. You want to
Yeah.
pull them right up to where you're at, right?
Yeah.
But
Just like have the whole thing.
look at all the stuff we had to go through to get to where we're at. So it's like they can't have that level of consciousness, but they can have a little bit.
Yeah.
And that little bit can be huge. It can make huge differences for them in their lives that a lot of times we don't realize.
Yeah. It's such a constant reminder that I have for myself, because I definitely have not mastered giving just the right amount.
It's a fine line.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to push it just a little to see what happens.
Exactly.
You know, and if they kind of go unconscious, then I'm like, okay, yeah, that was too much.
That was too much. Yeah, I think that's why I laugh so much. Like, I can give you some joy if you want it.
Yeah, I love it because the joy, the laughter, the amusement, those are some of the most important tools that we could have right now. It's just to be in total amusement.
Yeah, it would be quite a self-destructing process if you were taking everything seriously, especially right now. Woo!
It's a very, that's a very dark hole to be in.
Yeah.
You know, to just get so stuck in the seriousness.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean we're not going to, I definitely take things serious, but I also have to be an amusement too, because it is just a big show, a big play.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Doesn't
playing.
mean we don't care.
No, I have my days where I might see some things that are very hard, and I will feel, because I'm very, you're empathic, it's hard not to feel. I can easily tap into the collective consciousness and feel all the intense emotions and things everybody's going through. And I definitely have my days where it's like, man, it's just very heavy right now.
Super heavy.
Yeah. People in wars, killing each other, all kinds of stuff. Abuse to animals, children, those are the real hard ones for me.
Yeah. The intense levels of abuse that have really always gone on the planet and continue to. Genocide.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially, I'm same way with children. I think that's the hardest one for all healers, is when children are abused. And animals. What it represents is that attack on innocence and love. So it's a very difficult one to be with, and yet our loving presence is supportive.
Mm-hmm. And just by envisioning the world without that. But it's about staying on track in the reality that I want to be in. Mm-hmm. And we are shifting into different realities constantly. And so I don't want to be on the fear train.
Yeah.
Or the warring train. And it's that simple. The more you focus on something, you've just stepped onto that train and you're in that reality.
Yeah.
And so my reality that I'm holding space for is the world where there's no more war. Nobody has to fight for anything. There's free energy.
Yeah.
We all get to be super creative. We can have anything that we need at any moment because technology is so advanced. It allows that for us, and technology serves us.
Right.
This is another big fear of the AI. AI can totally be of service.
Yeah. Looking at it like, okay, which way are we going to go with this? Are we going to be the victim to AI, or are we going to use it as a tool to create more ease for everyone?
So that's what I stay focused on, is the world that I'm moving into. I mean, it already exists.
Yeah.
Because all those possibilities, everything is already existing already now. So I'm just staying on course to that reality, manifesting fully for myself.
Yes. Amen. I keep saying amen. Yay. Love it. Love it. Well, and I hope this is an inspiration for anyone watching that, you too can choose your course, create your reality, and invite others into that higher vibration of reality as well. Absolutely. We do all get to decide for ourselves. We are the center of our own hologram.
Yeah. And we are creating our reality. moment to moment. It's about what do you choose to be in and play in.
Yeah. Let's create a lot more beauty
Absolutely.
and lovingness and
Kindness and
sharing and cooperation. We're going in that direction.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is the great awakening, the great turn. The big ship is turning around. And I think instead of competition games, we're going to be playing a lot more cooperation and sharing games and
Absolutely.
co-creating beauty. May it be so.
And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Lisa.
Oh, thank you, Jean.
Enjoyed our conversation, and thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time on the Higher Vibe. Thank you for your presence.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, go ahead and hit like and subscribe. Share this with friends. Really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next time.